Hello and welcome to the workshop. In a recent video I showed how I went from a French cleat wall like this to a French cleat wall like this, and I spoke about the 5 mistakes that I made and nearly everybody makes when approaching French cleat walls. Now, in fact, you can watch that video up here. And one viewer wrote to me and asked for more detail as to the evolution as to how I got to this type of French cleat. And it was in some ways accidental, in that I stumbled across a video on YouTube that was about a budget laser. And I watched that video. I was quite impressed. I knew nothing about laser cutting or laser cutting machines, but I was quite impressed with what it could do. And when I looked it up, it was less than $200. It's a Sculpt Fun S9. I think it's 5.5 watts, so it's not very powerful, but it is a great entry machine. And my thinking was that even if I didn't use it, it wasn't going to break the bank. Now, as it turns out, I used it a lot. At the same time, my wife was spinning her own wool, and she was experimenting with dyeing the wool in different colours, lots of different colours. And she was making little cardboard bobbins, a bit like this, and she'd wind the wool around those and put a number on, so she indexed the mixture of the different dyes as to what got that colour. And I said, well, instead of you cutting these out, I could make those on the laser cutter. So very simple. I just designed these out of, these are 3mm MDF, and I made some boxes and holders like so, to hold all of these colours. And I made 4 of these boxes. She was making a lot of different dyes, and each one of them has a code on them. Not sure if you can see that in this corner, so she can look up. She's got a spreadsheet that says that the combination of dyes to get these various colours. And once I'd done that, I realised how simple it was to make boxes. And I thought, well, instead of creating French cleats from scratch each time, I could create a series of sizes, and then whenever I had a specific tool, I'd look it up, measure it, see which size fitted with what I'd already designed, and make it. That was the overall premise, was to do away with design after design after design from scratch every time. So here is the first one that I made, and this is in effect a box. Just, I've cut a piece out for a shape, and on the back you can see, or on the sides really, I have a French cleat. Now this was a bit of a hangover from the box that I made, and this is 8mm, and I've also gone right out to the edge, so that when these hang on the wall next to each other, you can't really see any of the finger joints anymore, box joints, call them what you like. And so I was along the lines that, well, I'd like to see the box joints because they look good. This didn't give anything any room to breathe on the wall, if you know what I mean. I only have a small workshop, but I did decide that design was a factor, and I wanted to see these box joints. And I wanted to come in from the edges a little bit with each of the tools, and you can see here I'm actually 18mm in from the edge of everything that I made. So that's how I started. I also made these sort of things early on. Here I am actually down to 6mm. So once this was a prototype, but I realised that 6mm was plenty strong enough for anything that I was going to make. So now let's look at a few of the things that evolved over time to hang various tools. So after some calculations, the first thing that I settled on was the dimension of the wall boards, or the majority of the cleats would be 282mm. That's because it needs to be divisible by 6mm, which is what I settled on for all of the construction. And also with a 6mm gap. So that was fairly early on, and then I started to experiment, prototype, play with overall designs. So for example, this had been one of my early cleats, just a glove dispenser, just made out of 12mm scrap. It's way overbuilt for what it is. and of course it didn't fit in with my 282mm design. So the first one that I prototyped was like this. This is now the right height, but again I was showing off the finger joints, but I thought this was a bit too busy in your face. I didn't particularly like this design, and it was a box, so it was right out to the edge. So I refined that to this version, and you can see this is much cleaner. It's in a bit from the one that will be its neighbour all round, and these black lines are a lot cleaner than the box joints all round. So that was one there. Again, an early one with box joints showing at the front here and full width, and here's the refined version. I hope you can see that. Let's put this down so you can see it. So again, this, in effect, this design to some degree is a lot closer to this design. Let's grab a couple more. Around this time I started experimenting with different ways of holding goggles and masks. I wanted to build a head, at least that's what I thought. I actually made a full-size head at one stage, but it's actually enormous. So then I started experimenting with smaller ones. I have to make prototypes out of cardboard, because obviously cutting up MDF or 6mm ply gets, it's not expensive, but it's more expensive than cardboard, and this gives you more than enough of an idea. So that's how this came about, this idea, and the mask obviously fits on here, and here's the finished version. There's a hook up the top here, and the mask fits on here. So that was one way. Also for ear defenders, I did this to begin with, just very simple, but then I saw some of these things on the market for gaming headphones, and gamers wear headphones a lot, just like we do, ear defenders, and they had some really quite, I saw some really quite stylish designs. So I designed this one here, which I just think is rather nice. The battery holder, to begin with, I designed this. So this was a half-size board with lots of holes in, but this uses a lot of plywood in here. There's a lot to give the batteries the various heights so they all stick up at the right amount, or roughly the same amount. And that's when I came up with this design using a shadow foam in this case. I just think it looks a lot nicer. You can, I'm a designer by trade, and I think it's important. We spend so much money on our tools, why not display them in a beautiful way, as opposed to just with a bit of scrap that we found under the bench or whatever. The same goes for the iPhone or smartphone holder. You see some designs that are just a shelf with a little piece of timber, so the phone sits like this. I thought, well, why not make one with a passive speaker? That looks so much better. So I hope that gives you some idea of how these evolved. Obviously for bigger tools, I developed the type like this. This is a socket set on here. So these are primarily the same design, but they just carry on up higher. So these are made specifically for the top cleat. And here I've just got a piece of cleat, just glued and screwed here. And this is a socket set with a couple of cleats on. So this just goes on and off like that, and when it sits on the bench it's flat because it's got one cleat here and a standoff here. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. Feel free to drop by the website. It's neatfrenchcleat.com, and you can see lots more designs and the range of basics. You know, many of these are just a wall board, like here with the scissors here. This is a wall board just with 2 magnets on. Down there we've got a wall board with 2 magnets holding the tape measures. I used to be forever looking for tape measures, and now they're just here. They just clip on, clip off. Hope you can see that. Another wall board with a compass, 2 more magnets with screwdrivers, some steel rules, etc, etc. Here I've just added some dowels to hold various pliers. It's a very simple system here. These are just boards with hammers, etc, etc. Anyway, I hope that gives you an idea of the design process. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference to this channel. If you think I'm mad, drop a comment. If you have any suggestions, feel free to put those in the comments too. Anyway, I've been Alan, you've been watching. I'll see you in the next video.